This video tutorial I will explain how to create interactive API documentation for your REST API using Swagger. If you want to know more about Swagger, then go to this website. Swagger simplify API development for users, team and enterprises with Swagger open source and professional toolset. And click on this to explore Swagger tools. Why do we need Swagger? Swagger is used for API design, API development, API documentation, API testing, API mocking and virtualization, API governance, API monitoring. Using Swagger, we can design and model the APIs. Once design is done, from the design, we can generate the code almost any programming language. And then we can create interactive API documentation. And also using Swagger, we can perform a simple functional test on your APIs without any overhead. And also we can set and enforce API style guidelines across your API architecture. Next, what we will see is how to integrate Swagger with existing RESTful API project and how to generate interactive API documentation using Swagger and how to use tools like Swagger UI to see the API specification. Here you can see the example of Swagger API documentation once we integrate Swagger with your RESTful API project. And in the top section, we can see the description of the project. And here you can see the list of endpoints which are supported by this project. And here you can see the model details. Here post meaning this particular endpoint support HTTP method post and this particular endpoint support HTTP method put. Click on this and here you can see the request details and what will be the response. So all those request and response details here you can see. And if you want to test or if you want to give it a try, then click on this and here you can provide the pet ID and click on execute. The request will send to the RESTful API endpoint and here we got the response. Now we will see how to add Swagger dependencies in our project. Here you can see Spring Fox project and it is the implementation of Swagger specification. And using this, we can generate API documentation automatically. We will see how to do that. If you want to know more about Spring Fox project, then go through this URL and here you can find quick links like samples, release, snapshot, etc. Click on reference documentation and you can go through this documentation to understand more about Spring Fox project. To get Maven dependency, go to this mbnrepository.com and search for Spring Fox. And here you can see Spring Fox Swagger 2 and Spring Fox Swagger UI. These two we need. and I'm going to use 2.9.2 version. Click on this, and here you can see the dependency details. And in Swagger UI also, I am going to use 2.9.2 version, and here we got the dependency details. This dependency and this dependency I have added in the form.xml file. Here you can see. Now we will see how to create a Swagger configuration file, and this Swagger configuration file is needed to tell the framework which package it has to scan to find RESTful Web Service endpoints, and using those RESTful Web Service endpoints, the API documentation will be created automatically. Here I have defined the class Swagger config, and in this class I have applied configuration annotation and enable Swagger 2 annotation, and in this class API method is there. This method returns docket bean, and here I have specified which package it has to scan to find out RESTful Web Service endpoints. Based on that, API documentation will be created automatically. And in this package, user controller is there, and it has various endpoints for creating users, getting the users, deleting the users, etc. And based on these endpoints, API documentation will be created. Next, we will see how to enable Swagger URLs and view JSON documentation. Here you can see web security class, and it has a configure method. And in that, we have to add this piece of code so that when we access Swagger related URLs, it won't ask authorization header. Basically, we no need to provide authorization header to access Swagger related URLs. Now I am going to start this Spring Boot application. Use this URL to access Swagger UI. Here you can see the Swagger UI, and here you can see the base URL. And to view the API documentation in JSON format, click on this. Copy this JSON. Paste it here. Click on viewer, and you can view it in the formatted way. And here you can see the API documentation in JSON format. And here you can see the different endpoints supported by the particular Spring Boot application. To understand API documentation in JSON format is a bit difficult. So we will use Swagger UI. Swagger UI has two sections. The first one is user controller, and second one is models. Click on user controller to expand this, and to get a list of users, we can use this URL, and HTTP method is get. To create the user, we can use this URL, and HTTP method is post. And to get the particular user based on the ID, then we can use this URL, and HTTP method is get. And to update the particular user, we can use this URL, and HTTP method is put. To delete the user, we can use this URL, and HTTP method is delete. And like that, you can see other endpoints. Click on models, and here you can see the models which we have used in our project. And to understand address request model, click on this, and here you can see each property and the corresponding data type. And like that, you can click and understand that. In user controller, there is create user method is there. To call this method, we have to use this URL, and HTTP method is post. Click on this, and here you can see the request details. Here you can see the sample value which we have to send it to the server in order to create the user. And it is in XML format, and if you want to change to JSON, select this, and you can see the example value in JSON format. And if you want to understand the model, click on this, and here you can see the model. And here you can see the sample response, how it will be. And it is in XML format. If you want to change, select JSON. Here you can see the sample response in JSON format. And Swagger is interactive. So if you want to send user create request and create the user, that is possible. Click on try it out, and here we have to provide the user details in JSON format. Copy this, first name is Arun, last name is P, and email address, password, and it has array of addresses. Click on execute, and here we got the output. We got 200 status code, and here we got the response body, and user is successfully created, and this is the public user ID. And here you can see the response headers. We can check it in database. Click on refresh, and here you can see one user record is created. And for this user, address is also created in addresses table. User is successfully created, and this is the public user ID. Using this public user ID, we will see how to get this particular user. For that, we have to use this URL, and HTTP method is get. Click on this, and here you can see it accept ID parameter, and here you can see the sample output. Click on try it out, and here provide the public user ID, and click on execute, and here you can see we got status code as 403 and access denied, because we are using Spring security, and it is not allowing to get the response back. So what we have to do is we have to pass authorization header with JWT token. But in the request, there is no option to provide authorization header. and we will see how to add authorization header and pass JWT token and get the particular user details. Now we will see how to add authorization header as a header parameter. Now I am going to add authorization header parameter in the getUser method. So in getUser method, I have applied API implicit params annotation, and here I am passing the parameter name as authorization, and value is nothing but description of this parameter, and parameter type I am passing as a header. Parameter type can be a path parameter or query parameter or body parameter or form parameter. And to check that, open this, and here you can see what are the possible parameter type is mentioned here. Path parameter, query parameter, body parameter, header parameter, and form parameter. And here we have mentioned header parameter. Now I am going to start this application. Open the Swagger UI, click on this, click on Get User, and here you can see the header parameter authorization is added, and here you can see the description. And click on Try it out, and here we have to pass the public user ID, and here we have to pass the JWT token. I have opened the Postman, and I'm going to send a request to this login URL. HTTP method is post, and in the body I am passing email and the password. Click on send, and here I got the public user ID. Copy this and paste here. Then copy the JWT token, paste here, and response content type change to JSON. Then click on execute, and here you can see we got status code as 200, which means successful, and here we got the response body. We got the details of the user Arun, list of addresses, first name, last name, and email address. So if you see this Swagger UI, there is no login URL to get JWT token. It has get users, create users, only those URLs are there. There is no login URL is there to get the public user ID and JWT token, like we have done here using Postman. We will see how to add login URL and how to get JWT token and public user ID using Swagger. Now we will see how to add login endpoint. Here I have defined the class authentication controller, which is REST controller. And here I have defined the fake login method, and this method should not be called because it is implemented by Spring Security. And this method we have defined here, the purpose for Swagger UI to show the login URL, so that we can send the request from Swagger UI. And in the parameter, I am passing login request model, because in the body we have to pass email and password. And here API operation name is user login, and the The API responses should return authorization header and public user ID. And here is the description for authorization header, and response return type should be string. Now what we will do is we will run the application and see it is working or not. Click on this URL and here you can see authentication controller, and here you can see the login URL, and method should be post, and here you can see this is the example value we have to pass, and response header we will get authorization and user ID. Here is the description, and here is the type. Click on try it out. Copy this. So email I am passing arun@yahoo.com. Password I am passing pass123. Click on execute. And status code we got 200, and response headers we got authorization header which has JWT token, and public user ID. Here you can see the public user ID. Now we will see how to configure this API section. To configure API info section, what we have to do is in Swagger config class, create API info object, and in API info constructor, we have to pass title, description, version, terms of service URL, contact name, license, and license URL. Here you can see all those things I have passed, and in API method which returns docket object, and in that we have to add API info, and this is how we can add API information in the API information section. And suppose if you want to configure protocols, then we have to add protocols like this. Here I have added HTTP and HTTPS. Now we will start the application and see it is working or not. Here you can see the API information section has been configured with whatever details we have provided. The title we have provided as user RESTful web service documentation, and that you can see here. Like that you can see other details also, and here we have provided protocols as HTTP and HTTPS, and that you can see here, HTTP and HTTPS. Click on user controller, and here you can see HTTP method name, path, and method name in the user controller. I am opening user controller class, and here you can see create user method and get user method. The same method name, here you can see create user and get user. Instead of method name, I want to provide proper description and notes. We will see how to do that. Here you can see get user method, and in this method I have applied API operation annotation, and here I have provided value. Value is nothing but description of the web service endpoint, and value I have mentioned get user details web service endpoint, and notes I have provided this web service endpoint returns user details and need to pass public user ID in the URL. Now I am going to start this application. Click on refresh, and here you can see the description of the web service endpoint instead of method name. Click on this, and here you can see the notes. You can get Java source code link for each video in the description section of the video. Here you can see the description section. Click on show more, and here you can see the Java source code links. Click on these links to get the Java source code.